And that starts by acknowledging that we do have a problem. And we all know it. What's different today is the nature and the extent of the polarization. How ideologically divided the parties are is brought about by some of the same long-term trends in our politics and our culture. The parties themselves have become more homogeneous than ever. A great sorting has taken place that drove Southern conservatives out of the Democratic Party. Northern moderates out of the Republican Party, so you don't have within each party as much diversity of views. And you've got a fractured media. Some folks watch Fox News, some folks read the Huffington Post. And very often, what's profitable is the most sensational conflict and the most incendiary sound bites. And we can choose our own facts. We don't have a common basis for what's true and what's not. I mean, if I listen to some of these conservative pundits, I wouldn't vote for me either. I sound like a scary guy. You've got advocacy groups that, frankly, sometimes benefit from keeping their members agitated as much as possible. Assured of the righteousness of their cause. Unlimited dark money that nobody knows where it's coming from. Who's paying drowns out ordinary voices. And far too many of us surrender our voices entirely by choosing not to vote. And this polarization is pervasive and it seeps into our society to the point where surveys even suggest that many Americans wouldn't want their kids to date someone from another political party. Now, some of us don't want our kids dating, period. But that's a losing battle. But this isn't just an abstract problem for political scientists. This has real impact on whether or not we can get things done together. This has a real impact on whether families are able to support themselves. Or whether the homeless are getting shelter on a cold day. It makes a difference as to the quality of the education that kids are getting. This is not an abstraction. But so often, these debates, particularly in Washington but increasingly in state legislatures, become abstractions. It's as if there are no people involved, it's just cardboard cutouts and caricatures of positions. It encourages the kind of ideological fealty that rejects any compromise as a form of weakness. And in a big, complicated democracy like ours, if we can't compromise, by definition, we can't govern ourselves. Look, I am a progressive Democrat. I am proud of that. I make no bones about it. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Sit down, Democrats. Sit down. Sit down just for a second. I appreciate that. But I want to make this larger point. I believe we're judged by how we care for the poor and the vulnerable. I believe that in order to live up to our ideals, we have to continually fight discrimination in all its forms. I believe in a tough, smart foreign policy that says America will never hesitate to protect our people and our allies. but that we should use every element of our power and never rush to war. Those are the things I believe. But here's the point I want to make. I believe that there are a lot of Republicans who share many of these same values. Even though they may disagree with me on the means to achieve them. I think sometimes my Republican colleagues make constructive points about outdated regulations that may need to be changed. Or programs that, even though well intended, didn't always work the way they were supposed to. And where I've got an opportunity to find some common ground, that doesn't make me a sellout to my own party. That applies well. We'll talk later, Duncan. This is what happens, everybody starts cherry picking. One thing I've learned is folks don't change. So trying to find common ground doesn't make me less of a Democrat or less of a progressive. It means I'm trying to get stuff done. And the same applies to a Republican who, heaven forbid, might agree with me on a particular issue, or if I said America is great, decided to stand during a State of Union. It's not a controversial proposition. You're not going to get in trouble. But the fact that that's hard to do is a testament to how difficult our politics has. Become. Because folks are worried, well, I'm going to get yelled at by you. Or this blogger is going to write that, or this talk show host is going to talk about me. And suddenly I've got to challenge her, and calling me a Reno or a not a real progressive. So when I hear voices in either party boast of their refusal to compromise as an accomplishment in and of itself, I'm not impressed. All that does is prevent what most Americans would consider actual accomplishments like fixing roads. Educating kids, passing budgets, cleaning our environment, making our streets safe. It cuts both ways, guys. See, suddenly everybody is standing. This is fascinating to watch. The point is, it cuts both ways. Our founders trusted us with the keys to the system of self-government. Our politics is the place where we try to make this incredible machinery work. Where we come together to settle our differences and solve big problems, do big things together that we could not possibly do alone. And our founders anchored all this in a visionary constitution that separates power and demands compromise. Precisely to prevent one party, or one wing of a party, or one faction, or some powerful interests from getting 100% of its way. So when either side makes blanket promises to their base that it can't possibly meet tax cuts, without cuts to services everything will be fine, but we won't spend any money. War. Without shared sacrifice we're going to be tough, but don't worry. It will be fine union bashing or corporate bashing without acknowledging that both workers and businesses make our economy run. That kind of politics means that the supporters will be perennially disappointed. It only adds to folks' sense that the system is rigged. It's one of the reasons why we see these big electoral swings every few years. It's why people are so cynical. Now, I don't pretend to have all the answers to this. These trends will not change overnight. If I did, I would have already done them through an executive action. That was just a joke, guys. Relax. But I do want to offer some steps that we can take that I believe would help reform. Our institutions and move our system in a way that helps reflect our better selves. And these aren't particularly original, but I just want to go ahead and mention them. First is to take, or at least reduce, some of the corrosive influence of money in our politics. Now, this year, just over 150 families have spent as much on the presidential race as the rest of America combined. Today, a couple of billionaires in one state can push their agenda. Dump dark money into every state, nobody knows where it's coming from, mostly used on these dark ads. Everybody is kind of dark and the worst picture possible. And there's some ominous voice talking about how they're destroying the country. And they spend this money based on some ideological preference. That really is disconnected to the realities of how people live. They're not that concerned about the particulars of what's happening in a union hall in Galesburg. And what folks are going through trying to find a job. They're not particularly familiar with what's happening at a VFW post. Phone. Rings. Somebody's phone is on. In Carbondale. They haven't heard personally. From farmers outside of the quads and what they're going through. Those are the voices that should be outweighing a handful of folks with a lot of money. I'm not saying the folks with a lot of money should have no voice. I'm saying they shouldn't be able to drown out everybody else's. And that's why I disagree with the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision. I don't believe that money is speech, or that political spending should have no limits. Or that it shouldn't be disclosed. I still support a constitutional amendment to set reasonable. Limits on financial influence in America's elections. But amending the Constitution is an extremely challenging and time-consuming process, as it should be. So we're going to have to come up with more immediate ways to reduce the influence of money in politics. There are a lot of good proposals out there, and we have to work to find ones that can gain some bipartisan support, because a handful of families and hidden interests shouldn't be able to bankroll elections in the greatest democracy on earth. The second step towards a better politics is rethinking the way that we draw our congressional districts. Now, let me point this out. I want to point this out, because this is another case of cherry picking here. This tends to be popular in states where Democrats have been drawing the lines among Republicans. And less popular among Republicans where they control drawing the lines. So let's be very clear here, nobody has got clean hands on this thing. Nobody has got clean hands on this thing.